Hey there, my name is Julie Hirschberg. If we haven't met, I'm the owner-founder of Reactive Therapy and Wellness in the Los Angeles area, and wanted to share just quickly a few highlights from a workshop that we did this past week. It was on Tuesday and it's Thursday. So we did a workshop on functional neurologic disorders for healthcare providers. And as you know, this is a big area of interest for us. And something that we're really passionate about is sharing the word and educating other healthcare providers. So I wanted to share one of the pieces, one of the highlights of the workshop, which is really about why might functional neurologic disorders actually happen. So I'm going to share a couple of pieces here. And actually, I'm going to go back a notch. Sorry about that. Let me grab this. So this was one of the slides from our workshop about functional neurologic disorders, just to highlight the prevalence of this. So functional neurologic disorder is the second most common diagnosis to present to neurology offices. So this is something that clearly healthcare providers are going to see, especially PTs and OTs. And it is a broad umbrella term for many disorders: functional movement disorders, functional seizures, persistent perceptual postural dizziness, complex regional pain syndrome. All of these fall under the umbrella of functional neurologic disorders. So when I bring up this diagram, it actually kind of has that as the background of thinking about the overlapping pieces for many of these disorders. So this is a diagram that I have shared for a couple of years now on functional neurologic disorders. Adapted it from a diagram or figure for 3PD that Janine Holmberg put together a while back that I really loved. And I really created it for functional neurologic disorders. And this is kind of based on the science that we know. How might a functional neurologic disorder actually occur? And I'm going to go step by step because I know these are kind of tiny here. I made a slide for each one. So, part one. So what we know, and I always have to, where did I put my book? Oh, it's right here. I always have to go back to Oliver Sacks. I know I talk about this a lot, but he wrote a book about an incident of really where he developed a functional neurologic disorder. He didn't call it that at the time, but it's called A Leg to Stand On, and it's where he had an initial event, which was a leg injury. Now, what was an important piece is, like, a lot of us have leg injuries, right? And we don't develop a functional neurologic disorder. And Oliver Sacks did not just have any kind of leg injury. He had a leg injury where he thought he was going to lose his life, trampled by a bull on a hill in a country where he didn't speak the language. There was many contextual factors that were associated with this event. And often what we see in functional neurologic disorders, there might be an event. So it could be a physical injury, like Oliver Sacks. It could be an inflammatory response that has occurred with maybe a virus or something like that. It could be a physical or emotional trauma, car accident, concussion. It could be sleep deprivation. It could be a dizziness event. It could be a panic attack. And one of the things that is really important, it may not be that event happened and then immediately later the functional neurologic disorder occurred. It may be that actually after the person's nervous system has settled, or after some time, that it actually develops. We don't know for sure. Often what I have found is that it's an accumulation of events or predisposing factors that contribute to a cascade. In the case of Oliver Sacks, there was a very clear injury and response to that injury that occurred. So then what happens here? So let me get the next part. So the next part is adaptation. And we all adapt to an injury. And typically we recover. You know, a lot of people who have a traumatic leg injury recover. They might have surgery, they might have some nerve damage or muscle damage or joint or tissue damage, but they go through a process and they recover. Same with people after a car accident. Same with people who have an emotionally traumatic event. They can recover and not have a functional neurologic disorder. So then the question is, why might some people have this initial event or accumulation of events and actually develop a functional neurologic disorder? Now, we don't know for sure. And actually, it's likely many different ways that this occurs. Not that there is one way. But one thing that we know is that there are factors. Oh, and it looks like the word on the bottom one got cut off, but there are things that promote either positive neuroplasticity, so meaning neuroplastic changes in the brain that lead in a really positive direction, or things that can kind of lead neuroplasticity awry. Neuroplasticity is going to occur. Our brains are amazing, amazing things. Neuroplasticity is going to occur, and sometimes it just occurs maladaptively. And so what are some of the reasons that might occur? Could it be immune system issues or genetic issues, connective tissue issues, another neurologic disorder? So this is something we talked about in the workshop. Common comorbid conditions with functional neurologic disorders: migraine, Parkinson's, MS, stroke, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, autism maybe could be one of those. So there might be other conditions that are kind of leading to that neuroplasticity gone awry. There might be psychosocial or environmental issues. Maybe you had that car accident, you were left alone for hours. Maybe you had the car accident, and after you got home, your family said, well, you're fine, it was just a car accident. Why do you still have symptoms? And you lacked that support and efficacy. So those are things that we do know from some of the literature in some people. Now, it's not a perfect equation like this plus this plus this equals FND. That is actually not the case. But you know what? That's not the case in ALS. We don't totally understand. It's not the case in Parkinson's. We don't totally understand. MS even. So FND is no different than a lot of the neurologic disorders that we don't fully understand. But like some of the other neurologic disorders that maybe we understand better, there are some prognostic factors or things that contribute, right? So this is what we're looking at. What might contribute to that adaptation? So I'm going to go back here. So I'm just going to zoom out for a moment. So we had that initial in the blue or accumulation of events. Then we have that adaptation, and we either have kind of these positive neuroplasticity factors or these negative neuroplasticity factors. And we go either through reconnection, control, and recovery, or alongside some of the maladaptive neuroplasticity or neuroplasticity gone awry, like I like to say, you could develop a functional neurologic disorder. So let's hone in on the green here. And do let me know if you can't hear me, by the way, because sometimes when I choose the picture, I accidentally hit mute. And I'm just testing that out. It looks like I'm unmuted, but that happened in my last video and I lost the end of it. So what occurs here and what we know from some of the neuroscience and imaging is that there is a maladaptive neuroplasticity. There's an impaired self-agency, and we see changes in the right temporal parietal junction in the brain. There's over-awareness of vigilance. So we see changes in attention and awareness that continue to drive, by the way, the functional neurologic disorder. So actually can kind of be predisposing. It can be perpetuated. And then undoing that neuroplastic change is really part of the recovery. So this is where I want to show that FND occurred, right? And we can also, through therapy, promote reconnection, control, and recovery. That is the hope we have through therapy. So I'm just going to bring this up again so that you can see FND occurs as a neuroplastic adaptive process for many different reasons in different people, and there's very likely many different kind of subtypes of why this occurs in folks. But the important thing is that it is an adaptation. It's a changing brain adaptation, and through therapy you can actually restore connection, restore control, and have recovery. So why was this a part of our workshop? I believe, let me just stop sharing, and I'm just going to show you our little workshop here. I believe so strongly in understanding the neuroscience and mechanisms so that we can drive assessment and treatment as healthcare providers. So number one is kind of that understanding that I say again and again, FND is real. It's not in people's head. It is this kind of neuroplasticity gone awry that is something that's amendable to therapy. And so this is a big foundation of like therapy works. It helps people with FND. We just need to understand it so that we can implement the right assessment and treatment. So if you missed our workshop, we actually have the recording still available. So you can go to reactiveeducation.com. And you'll see the workshop, The Secrets to Success with FND Plus. You can click on that and you can still get the workshop and watch all the recording and all of that. So that just got up, by the way. So if you missed it live, you can catch that. And one of the things that we also shared in the workshop, let me grab one more thing here. I know I'm going to have to like scroll down for this one. Here it is that we announced that we opened our Brain Bytes Community. This is a community for healthcare providers who love things like functional neurologic disorders, but also sometimes feel a little overwhelmed or lacking confidence and want the connection, the support, the growth and inspiration of a small group, a small but mighty. There's about 160 of us, PTs and OTs from across the world who are super passionate about these complex conditions. We open twice a year. This is the last time this year that we are opening. Our doors close on September 22nd. So they opened yesterday. So I know it says open today, but that was from yesterday. They opened yesterday. This is for PTs, OTs, trainers, healthcare providers that are really passionate about improving their outcomes, making a difference for clients with complex cases, while also taking care of themselves. That's something that's really important to us, important to me, because I've definitely been burnt out before and struggled. And it's really important to me to help other therapists to be able to work in a long-term sustainable way with folks with more complex conditions. So we are open and only through the 22nd. You can catch it at reactiveeducation.com/brainbytes. This is my favorite part of our education, is to be a part of mentoring and communicating and support with my fellow therapists from across the world. I absolutely love it. So if this is something that you were thinking of doing, I hope you'll join us because we are going to have such a great time this year. So thanks so much for caring and being a part of this community. Really, it's what gets me pretty excited to chat with you every week and to keep building this community. So thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you soon.